This is going to be our third video on data collection for SalesPad. My name again is Nathan DeLong. If you didn't see our first two videos, that's perfectly fine. Now this is going to be a video that's specifically covering fulfillment in SalesPad data collection. And so how do we use data collection to sort of enhance or add on to our fulfillment process? So once we get an order from a customer, we're ready to send that product out. Where exactly does maybe SalesPad desktop leave off? And then data collection pickup. That's exactly what we're going to be looking at here. As always, like with our first two videos, I know that we start with a little list of what are some things to think about, right, when it comes to our fulfillment process. So really, we're going to need to be thinking about, are we going to allow someone to overpick an order? Now, by default, that is not something you can do in data collection, but there are fulfillment scenarios where we could think that maybe overpicking is allowable. So if you think about, say, like a deli counter at the store, you ask for a pound of turkey, we never get exactly a pound. We might have 1.01, 1.1. In those kinds of situations, we might want to allow overpicking. So again, that's not something that data collection allows you to do by default, but if you have a need where we have an item that for whatever reason cannot be exactly measured, we can go ahead and we can allow that as part of configuring and implementing data collection. So it's just something to keep in the back of your mind. Another thing to think about is, should pick and pack be the same steps? Should those be integrated together, or are they distinct, separate steps? What about bulk picking? So in other words, do we want to have our pickers going through the warehouse and stopping at each bin location only one time and picking multiple orders with that? Or do we want them to just focus on one order at a time? So bulk picking really is saying, like, let's pick everything that has printed out on the warehouse printer on our pick lists or that we have on our mobile device in data collection. The bulk pick ticket is going to send us through the warehouse just one time to pick all of those. The other pick scenario that a lot of people use, of course, is pick that one order, complete it, then start the next order. We also, of course, have the ability to do barcode translation. So if we're picking items in our warehouse and we maybe scan our vendor's barcode, of course, with data collection, we can make sure that that barcode is going to actually pull up our item number the way we want it, so we can pick that item. We also do have the ability, as always, to support serial numbers, lot numbers, when those are important. They are something I think to think about in your picking process, to the extent that, if at all possible, it's excellent to have those lot or serial numbers be barcoded. They tend to be long numbers, they tend to be maybe not that easy to remember, not that easy to key in on your mobile device. So again, if you have, in my case, I just have an iPod Touch, but it does have a sled from Honeywell on it that allows me to scan barcodes. This is an ideal setup if you're dealing a lot with serial numbers or lot numbers. It's so much easier to scan those on a barcode, and it's so much less error prone than if you have to key those in on the touch screen. So the last thing I would say that's important too is in a multi-bin environment. We talked a little bit in the last video about data collection and data collection extended warehouse. And really the important thing there is that we're able to keep from picking in bins where we don't want people to pick from. So again, don't pick from the staging area, don't pick from receiving, don't pick directly off the shop floor until all inspections are completed. So having that ability to maybe carve out certain bin locations so that you really physically cannot use your mobile data collection device, it won't even allow you to pick from those locations, that's an important consideration, I think, and it's something to mull over. You know, what are the locations that we don't want someone to ever fulfill an order from? And then make sure that we've got data collection configured to reflect and enforce those best practices that we've come up with. I think that, you know, of course, all that being said, an effective fulfillment process is going to put those controls in place to make sure that we're pulling things from places where we want people to pull them from. we are going to want to make sure that we're tracking our serial numbers, our lot numbers as accurately as possible. And again, I think barcodes is a smart way to accomplish that. It's very hard to scan a barcode incorrectly, and it's very easy sometimes to type something incorrectly. I do think it's important too to control for quantity. So again, by default, data collection comes set up basically to look at an each type situation. So on your sales order, you have an item that is broken down into a particular unit, which can't be subdivided. So one vase, one box, one television set, whatever it may be, and you're not allowed to overpick that. But if you're in a situation where you're picking an item by weight, and it's easy maybe to go over or underweight a little bit, and you still want that reflected so that your inventory quantities remain accurate, again, data collection can be configured to allow that if that's necessary in your environment. It's something to bear in mind. I personally like bulk picking, where you're giving somebody a cart, you're giving them several orders to pick all at once, and they only have to make one pass through the warehouse. Bulk picking is something that's built into data collection. It's as easy as having some orders that need to be picked in the warehouse and then printing the report and giving it to somebody. That being said, it might not be a good fit for your situation, but I personally really like it because it cuts down on warehouse traffic. So especially if you have an environment where maybe you have some pickers who don't drive forklifts, and then you have some pickers who do have forklifts. I think bulk picking is a good way to kind of keep those two groups out of each other's way, because we don't have pickers who are on foot going through the warehouse many, many, many times a day. We're kind of limiting the amount that they're going through because we're fulfilling multiple orders in a single pass. And then last but not least, of course, leverage barcodes, not just for lot and serial numbers, but it's great to be able to use them for item numbers, for scanning bin locations. It really does cut down on work, it cuts down on manual entry, and it cuts down on errors. So now if you've seen the first or the second, or the first and the second video, all of these next things are going to be old hat to you at this point, but if this is the only video that you're watching, I do need to remind you, data collection, just like SalesPad, is directly integrated into your GP database. There's no syncing required between the two. Anything that I do here is going to be reflected immediately in SalesPad and in GP. With data collection, of course, we have a few different components. We have our DataCollection Console, which I can go ahead and pull up here on my laptop. And you'll notice, in my case, I'm using the Windows service, so I can start and stop this service from here. That Windows service works great if we have a situation where we've got maybe 5 or 6 mobile devices. Now, if we have more than that, when we go ahead and implement data collection, we're probably going to want to set it up using IIS. The reason being that if you have a large number of mobile devices that are generating a lot of calls to and from your data collection server, IIS is much better at dealing with that traffic efficiently than a Windows service is. So again, if you have up to like 5 or 6 of these, the Windows service is great. If you're going to have more than that, we will help you get IIS set up so that people who are using data collection on their mobile devices in the warehouse have a better experience and they don't see it being like laggy, or maybe they don't have just times where it feels a little slow. Last but not least, and again, this is the same that I said in the first and the second video that we've done here, you must have Wi-Fi connectivity in your warehouse. Without that Wi-Fi connectivity, data collection is not going to work on your mobile device because it won't be able to connect to its server. So you do need to have Wi-Fi throughout your warehouse. So if we want to go ahead and jump in, this video is going to be talking about fulfillment. So the first thing that I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to pull up a customer here in SalesPad, and let's go ahead and get an order entered for them. So I'm just going to go here and pull back all my customers, and I'm going to pick on Aaron Fitz. There we go. And let's go ahead and just place a real quick sales order for these guys. Now, I'm going to have 3 different items on here, and there's actually a reason for that. I'm going to put this backpack item on. And let's go ahead and just, I don't know, grab maybe 10 of these. And then I'm also going to have a couple other items. I'm going to have trail mix. I'm going to put 10 of those as well. And then these little mobile GPSs. I'm going to put 2 of these on here too. Well, actually, they're smartwatches, but I'm going to put 2 of those on. Now, there's a reason for this, because when we go through data collection, as it applies to fulfillment, it treats items differently based on whether or not they're lot tracked, serial tracked, or whether they're not tracked by lot or serial. So here in our little test order, our demo order, we actually have the backpack, which is not tracked by lot or serial number. Then we have our trail mix that is tracked by a lot number because it's a food item. And then for our little smart watches or our GPS watches, those are tracked by serial numbers. So that way we can see just in one order, basically, how data collection interacts with all 3 of those different types of items that we might wind up having. All right. There we go. So I've gone ahead and in SalesPad desktop, I entered that order, and now we've got it saved. And now it's going to be right here in our ready to pick queue. So as soon as I have data collection set up, so that as soon as things hit my ready to pick queue, they're available for picking on the mobile device. So to go ahead and do that, I'm just going to tap picking here. And now at this point, I can go ahead and choose a doc number. Now, any of these fields that have this rectangle around them, again, those are fields that we could use a barcode. We could scan that in. So maybe in an ideal world, once I place my order in SalesPad desktop and move it along to my picking queue, maybe at that point we have it so that a pick list with a barcode is actually going to print out in the warehouse that then someone can pick up and they can scan that barcode to get to the document. In my case, I don't have a printer here with me. So I'm going to click the little triangle that's next to document number, and then I'm just going to choose it from our list here. And again, these are all the orders that I have in my picking queue in SalesPad. Whichever queue or queues you have SalesPad data collection looking at is something that you can configure with a setting. So let's go grab that order. And now at this point, if I click the little triangle here next to item number, I can see a list of all the items that are on this order. So the first one that I'm going to go ahead and choose is our backpacks. And it's going to right away ask me what bin is that from. So if I click the little triangle, I can see that I've got these in 02A01. So I'm going to go over there, grab those. And then at this point, we can go ahead and enter our quantity. Now, before we do that, of course, it's going to tell me right here on the screen how many I have to pick in total, and then how many are left to pick. So if I increment through just one by one, it's going to then let me know if I submit that at this point, it's going to take down that total quantity to pick. But I'm going to pull all 10 at the same time here. And there we go, we've got those. I'm going to go ahead and submit it. Now for our next item, if I want, I can go ahead and scan a barcode for it. And then do the same thing, choose which bin it's from. And then here we have a serial tracked item. So ideally, in the real world, I would be in front of this bin and having these items right in my hands at this point, because we can then scan in that serial number. Now, since I'm not right in front of these items, I'm going to go ahead and have to just pick the serial numbers manually. So I'm going to hop in here, grab the first serial number, and then do the same thing and grab the next serial number. And you'll show that, of course, that means I've picked 2 now. Now, if we need to at any point, we can also, for serial tracked or for lot tracked items, we can change the items that we're choosing. So maybe I pick up one, I scan it, and I look at it, and I'm like, whoa, this one, it's defective because maybe there's a rip in the box, or maybe there's some other problem with it. I can always click this little blue eye next to serial number, and I can use these minuses to get rid of either of these items if I want to. In this case, though, we're going to say that they're both good. So I'll go ahead and submit that. And then, of course, the last item that we've got here is going to be the trail mix. So I'll go ahead and scan that item. And then for our trail mix, I'm going to pretend that I've walked through the warehouse and I'm now in front of its bin, which should be 01A01. So I'll scan that. And then for our lot number, same thing. Ideally, I could scan this lot number because I would physically have this product in my hand at this point. But again, in this case, I don't physically have these products. So I'm just going to manually choose a lot number to grab these from. And again, my quantity here is 10. So I'm just going to, this time, type in 10. And then we'll submit that as well. And now at this point, we'll get a message that our document is fully picked. Now, in my environment, once we have fully picked an item, I have it set up to then push that into the next queue, which is packing. So here in SalesPad Desktop, in my sales monitor, if I refresh, there is now in packing. And if we scroll down, we should even be able to see it. There it is, order 122, now in my packing queue. What that means for data collection is I can now go on my mobile device and we can go to packing, and then we can pull up that document and we can get it packed. With packing, really what we're doing here is we're saying that in my demo environment, I have pick and pack happening in two different places. So maybe I have a picker who goes through the warehouse, they collect all of the items for an order together, and then they give them to maybe somebody who's at a shipping desk or someone who is responsible for actually now boxing up these items and getting them ready to ship out the door. Now, in some places, that might not be a separate thing. This might not even be a required step. And in that case, you can, of course, omit it from your process. As we're going through and implementing data collection, that's kind of some of the stuff that we try to figure out so that we can make sure it's implemented to fit your processes. Let's go ahead then, and we've grabbed our order already. Now, for package number, I'm just going to have it create a package number for me by clicking that little I. I don't already have any package numbers that I'm ready to add to, so I'm just going to have it generate one for me. For package type, these are templates that I have set up. So in this case, I'm going to pretend that I'm going to use my 12 by 16 by 8 box, and then into that, I'm going to go ahead and put those backpacks. So I'll go ahead and get that scanned. And then let's get all 10 of those in there. There we go. Now, at this point, I could also put some notes on there. If I wanted to maybe use those on some kind of report or some kind of packing list, I could say, here are your 10 backpacks per your request, really whatever makes sense to put there. I'm going to leave it blank in my example and get that submitted. And then for our second package, we'll go ahead and do the same thing. And you'll notice when it generates this next package number, it's going to use a unique number. It's not going to try to reuse package 1 again. I could use package 1 again if I clicked this little triangle and selected it. But in this case, I want everything, our little smartwatches, our backpacks, and our trail mix all to be in separate boxes. So let's go ahead here. I'm going to grab my item number for my trail mix. And also at this point, it's going to ask me to confirm the lot number. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And again, this is where I could scan that lot number barcode right from the packaging if I had this item in front of me. And then for our quantity, there we go, there's 10. And again, there is that ability to put in notes if I want to. I'm not going to do that because I don't need any notes here. I'm going to go ahead and submit this one. And then last but not least, we're going to have our smartwatches, which I'm going to put into package 3. And for that one, I'm going to use a slightly smaller box. And then let's go ahead and grab our item number for those. And now, because that's a serial tracked item, I'm going to go ahead and have to select the serial numbers for these. And again, this would be where if I had the item in front of me, I could scan it. But really what we're just looking to do is to confirm that step, to confirm that as we went from picking now to our maybe shipping table or our packing table, that something didn't happen where we got our wires a little crossed and now all of a sudden the serial numbers are different or the lot numbers are different from any items that are tracked with serial or lot number. And then there we go, we'll submit that. And it's going to tell me now that document is fully packed. Now, what that is going to do then is it's going to cause that document now to fall into my next step in my workflow, which in my case, it's going to go now into my shipping queue. And we can see it right here in shipping and SalesPad. So if I go here to Ship Center and refresh, there's our document. And if we double click this document, what we'll be able to look at in Ship Center is that all of our items have been packed into those packages exactly the way we set them up, or exactly the way that we configured them in data collection on our mobile device. And this whole time, we don't have to do any syncing or anything like that. We're just using SalesPad to move our document from step to step to step based on what's happening in data collection. So we picked it, we packed it, and at this point, we would then be able to go ahead and ship out these packages. Now, another thing that I think that's important to show when it comes to fulfillment, we talked about doing just a single pick, but picking up multiple orders. And if we hop over here into data collection, we can actually take a look at that report. So that's going to be our bulk pick ticket. The first thing that we're going to need to do is it's going to ask us what queue. So what queue here in SalesPad do we have documents that are going to go to our bulk pick ticket? And in my case, of course, that's my picking queue. So I'll just go through here and get that one selected. There it is, ready to pick. And then, of course, only want my current warehouse. So here are all of the sales documents and all of the items that I currently have on orders in my ready to pick queue. And at this point, if I just select all of these, and then we can print that, and we'll take a look at a preview. So now you can see it's going to have me go to bin 01A01. So for me, that's my first aisle, the first column, the first shelf. It's going to have me pick one of these hard drives for order number 87. It's going to have me pick 2 of these electric bicycles for order 103.1, 1 trail mix from order number 80, 10 more trail mix for order number 81, and so on and so forth. It's going to take me all the way through the warehouse so that I get all of these items picked, and then that way I've been able to pick multiple orders, but only go through the warehouse one single time. And that can save a lot of time, and it can cut down on foot traffic. I guess another important thing to remember about the bulk pick ticket too is that we do have select all and select none. I don't know if I really showed that well, but if we go ahead and hit select none, you'll notice that all of these little selected boxes now are going to be cleared. If I hit select all, it's simply just going to select all of these. All that means is that if I want to give it to one of my pickers, maybe as the warehouse manager, there's certain items that I don't feel like they need to pick right now because maybe they're a lower priority. Maybe I want them to avoid a certain part of the warehouse for whatever reason. And if that's the case, I can then just go through and say, don't choose this, don't choose that, and then print it and let them go ahead and pick the remainder. So that's fulfillment with data collection. It's pretty quick and simple, which I suppose in a way is a good thing. It's not difficult to use on the mobile device. Again, when you're using, whether it's like an iOS device like this or whether it's an Android device, the interface looks the same. It's that familiar smartphone type interface that I think more and more people are comfortable with and accustomed to nowadays. And of course, the other advantage is that we can configure this to work not just with best practices in general, but with what you feel are best practices. So with bulk pick tickets, if you think that that's something that's useful, we can certainly help you configure that and make sure that that fits your process. By the same token, with fulfillment, if you want to maybe force people to have to scan every item to increment quantities, we can do that. We can also, of course, help with your lot and serial tracking for those kinds of items. So again, if you want to see more of our videos going over SalesPad and some of the different tools that we have to offer, I definitely encourage you to take a look at them. I really appreciate your time, and this really does conclude our series of 3 videos on data collection. I hope you enjoyed them. I hope you found them useful. Definitely please reach out to us if there's anything in here that's piqued your interest. And I hope you have a great day.